Hey, Happy New Year's, everybody. It's Patrick Lovell coming at you on, I believe it's Monday. I think it is Monday. In fact, let's double check. Is it Monday? It is, and we're going to record this, but it is Monday. How about that? Monday, January 2nd, 2023, brand new year. It's the kind of time where we have to, engage and everybody's stoked to move forward and like fix all the problems in the past and have a New Year's resolution and get in shape and clean up all the problems that continually hold us back. And, it's a very optimistic time, but at the same time, we've got a whole lot of problems. If you're just seeing me for the first time, my name is Patrick Lovell. I'm a muckraking journalist. I'm also a producer. I produced a incredibly important television series called The Con that you can find at www.thecon.tv. And what it does is it reveals the world that we live in. Now, a lot of things are going to happen here in the new year that we want to actually kind of think about as we're being optimistic towards the new year and all the things that we want to fix in our lives to make our lives and the world a better place. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are in control and in power that aren't necessarily interested in making the world a better place. They're interested in controlling the world for themselves at your expense. And that's really the situation. Now, the United States is supposedly a democracy where each person as a citizen has the right to vote, to hold its government accountable, and the system is supposedly of, by, and for the people, and that's the design through separation of powers. Now, unfortunately, that's not what we are. What we are is a corporate fascist state undergirded by a criminal syndicate, and it got that way because the power is extremely smart, and they're very sophisticated, and they've learned a long time ago how to basically game the system. How did they game the system? Well, primarily, if you write the laws, you can write the laws for yourself. That's first and foremost. But they do a lot of underhanded, deceptive tactics that you don't understand what happens in the shadows. And if they can control power, then they can control the outcome for themselves at your expense. And that's what's happened. So in a democracy, we're supposed to be ruled by majority rule, but that's not what we are. We're ruled by minority rule, and that minority rule is a criminal syndicate. And that criminal syndicate will stop at nothing to basically, it's like every freaking film we've ever seen, where the diabolical bad guy will hold on to power and murder everybody because that's what constitutes their power. It's not benevolent. It's certainly not within the context of accountability to the people. And then the people fail miserably because the people aren't accountable to themselves and they don't hold the government accountable. Most people stick their heads in the sand. Most people wipe their hands clean, and most people pretend that somebody else is going to come along and ride to the rescue and save everybody. But that's not happening. It hasn't happened yet because, unfortunately, the guys that are the most ambitious are the most diabolical. The ones that can actually pull all this stuff behind the scenes and make sure that you don't understand what's going on. So it's the greatest trick the devil ever played, was to convince the world he didn't exist. Meanwhile, you've got all of these people out there that are easily harnessed, manipulated, in what we call, typically, we like to refer to them as sheeple, right? People that might be a part of a specific conformity to a specific outcome. And we might actually interpret, for example, MAGA as the ultimate expression of sheeple. But let's really kind of think about it for a second and consider how MAGA actually came to be. Well, MAGA was ultimately, I'd say, the conformity of a collapsed white working class, middle class. And they came together because they couldn't stand the Democratic Party and for decades of neoliberalism that killed the golden goose, in which that the pensions and all of the older people that had worked their entire careers to ultimately basically wind up with butt kiss that was stolen from them were pissed off, and justifiably so. But unfortunately, their anger was misdirected because the right is incredibly sophisticated at propaganda and manipulation. When you have church and the patriarchy and that sort of thing, it's easy to see how people are going to conform to a certain outcome, and that's exactly what the Koch brother enterprisers and the Mercers and Sheldon Adelson and the likes of Blackwater and Eric Prince know exactly how to manipulate. And there's a lot of really powerful and smart and courageous people on that side, to be quite frank with you, but they've had it up to their eyeballs with corruption when they blame the left, supposedly the Democrats, which are not really the left. The left has become the actual meritocracy that, in some people's estimation, are the war party, because they are all in on Ukraine and anti-Russia invasion and that sort of thing. There's a lot of flip-flopping and mental gymnastics that have taken place that's just absolutely insane. Take, for example, the last couple of weeks. We saw on Twitter, there's the Twitter files that revealed, for example, that Twitter was working in cahoots with the FBI to basically suborn right-wing radicals. Okay, right-wing radicals that were doing what? Trying to create a insurrection that are treasonous. They are treasonous, and so is Trump. Trump is not only a conviction, menace and a clown of extraordinary proportions. That son of a bitch is guilty of so many crimes, it's unbelievable. But meanwhile, he's still walking around breathing free air. What the fuck did he have down in Mar-a-Lago? What was he selling? How come we don't know? We do know that the guy was involved with control fraud his entire freaking career, using deceptive acts and practices to basically lie, steal, and cheat his way to a mythical billionaire, even though he inherited so much money that he was on third base and he could have been a multi-billionaire by just playing the market the way it was instead of trying to basically do what Trump does. But Trump's an egomaniac, and here we are at the later stages of his life, and the guy's a pathetic joke. But the bottom line is that 72 million people voted for this ass clown in the 2020 elections, and for what? Because he wasn't the meritocratic Dem Party of Wall Street that let Wall Street get away with the most mammoth criminal conspiracy and cover-up in the history of the world, which pulled its own coup d'etat, the real coup d'etat, the hijacking of the United States and our democracy by the corporate fascist state that's a criminal syndicate. How do I know? I made the goddamn film. It's called The Fucking Con, and it's at www.thecon.tv. It's the one show that BlackRock can't have you see. Who is BlackRock? BlackRock are the masters of the universe. Why? Because we let them become the managers of the emergency stimulus that came from the Federal Reserve in the wake of the 2008 great financial crisis, of which their CEO was very much a part of, and he was also a part of the cleanup of the Resolution Trust that took place after the savings and loan debacle that was actually the first, let's call it the first act of what became the 2008 great financial crisis. And in 2009, because of that, because it was an absolute criminal syndicate top to bottom that used deceptions and deceptive acts and practices to create a scheme for fees that all the way through the system blew up the fucking world with $600 trillion of derivatives in 2009 or 2008 that ultimately melted the situation down, and they pointed a gun at their head and they threatened Congress, try to stop me and I'll shoot, because they were systemically important, too big to fail apparatuses with actually its tentacles in every aspect of the global economy. They pulled this coup d'etat where they used a criminal syndicate to blow up 50 million Americans, where our judiciary system basically used illegal fucking documentation fraud to illegally foreclose on tens of millions of people that went through suicides and wound up in the streets and all sorts of different calamity around the goddamn country. And that was 13 fucking years ago. And then ultimately what we wind up with is we spent trillions upon trillions of dollars to create this illusion of buying toxic assets off the banks of the books, which really wasn't transferring the actual asset of the toxic asset, which stayed on the banks of the bank's books. Jesus Christ, I'm getting a little tongue-tied because I'm so pissed off. And the notion of all of this stuff is it's just simply, you don't know how the system works. You don't understand what country you're living in. You don't understand that this is not capitalism. This is not free markets, because both of those would actually demand that if you fail miserably and big, and you don't get to start over, because that's what we call bankruptcy, even though that is starting over, but 7 years later with a whole bunch of problems. You don't get trillions of dollars given to you on a fucking platinum platter when nobody's looking, because the goddamn, head of the Federal Reserve, the head of the Treasury, and the head of, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York pulled an end round with Congress to sell the world and our stupid fucking media that we have this situation where, we're going to create $700 billion relief package to buy toxic assets to create liquidity, problem solved. No, it wasn't problem solved. We ended up giving these motherfucking rat bastards 30 trillion motherfucking dollars. Do you not understand what, grifters and fucking criminals are going to do when you let them blow up the world and you give them fucking trillions of more dollars? They're going to do the same thing. And then we end up with this goddamn insurrection, which, it blew my fucking mind. That wasn't regular people that care about democracy. They don't care about actually the integrity of law. They don't care about any aspect of what this country is supposed to be. But they just want a white supremacist fucking Confederate revolution so that they can have all the control. That's the way it's always been. They don't fucking punch up. They punch sideways and punch down. Meanwhile, all the silos, whether it's women or whether it's African Americans or this and that, they want to be like, we got one issue only to solve. Meanwhile, everybody's getting screwed by the same operation. Then you got this ex-president, Trump, walking around like he's going to fucking run for presidency again. Then you've got these ass bastards that were actually treasonous that are going to run the fucking, Congress, where they're going to stagnate everything that went on. I mean, it wasn't a red wave, but the bottom line is it's not going to actually do anything. It's going to be what they call a Congress doesn't accomplish anything, because when you have a Congress that's at wit's end, they don't accomplish anything. So who wins? Wall Street. What is Wall Street? The engine of capitalism? Well, it used to be, but it's not anymore, because they're above the law, because they've learned how to game the system where if you get free money in and the Federal Reserve buys your toxic assets, then you can manipulate shit all day, every day, where stupid people out there will never stop them. So anyway, that's what we're facing. And whether or not you decide you've had enough of this and you want to live in a country that has the laws that hold power to account, where it enables liberty and justice for all and fairness so that we have upward mobility. So as we look at, for example, at all of these wonderful bowl games that have happened, I'm a huge football fan, and some of these great things that are going to happen in the playoffs, you know what? That's a meritocracy. When you get to the highest levels of competition, do you expect the deck to be stacked so that there's no competition? No, we're Americans. We like the best to rise to the top based on them earning it, not stealing it. And so I'm a little bit fired up and I'm ready to go. I'm not in a bad mood, to be honest with you. I just hate corruption, and I hate ignorance, and I hate stupidity, and I hate motherfuckers that lead to, people that think they're better than everybody else because they're born a certain skin color. Fuck you. You know what? I'll tell you who the people are the best at everything that this country has to offer. It doesn't matter what color, skin, or gender or whatever. It's their work ethic and what they do to become what they are. And they got to have a fair playing field so we can come up with solutions to incredibly insane problems like, climate change and everything else based on our insatiable appetite for fossil fuels. Why? Because a minority has all the control. By the way, what do you think 9/11 was? Do you think Saudi Arabia had nothing to do with 9/11? Meanwhile, it's 20 years later and Saudi Arabia is walking around like they're Donald fucking Trump. Get it? Do you fucking get it? Have you seen the light? Do you understand what's at stake? It's 2022. Do you have any idea how much blood and treasure is spilled to get us to a point to where you have the freedom to be able to vote and be responsible and be, engaged in a way that citizens need to hold power account? Do you want to hate me? You want to hate me because I believe in liberty and justice for all, because I believe in upward mobility, because I believe that free markets should reward those that earn it in an honest, mechanism that enables the best to rise to the top? You want to hate me for that? Fuck you, I hate you. How about that? The bottom line is, I want to see the best rise to the top that earn it, and we hold the bad guys accountable. Sorry to raise my voice, but apparently nobody wants to listen to common sense.